populist right in Europe is poised for victory in upcoming elections. This follows populist right victories in Latin America and the United States. Current centrist and leftist governments cling to power by threads and are only losing support as disillusioned Europeans grow tired of mass migration and EU overreach, as unelected EU bureaucrats force European nations to accept barbaric refugees and to recognize same-sex marriage. Censorship has also been a problem that the EU has brought upon its people. These are some of the reasons why the Eurosceptic populist right are gaining ground and are finally close to actually winning and governing for the first time ever since the post-World War II liberal consensus. The last genuine populist right-wing government fell in 1975 after the death of General Francisco Franco. However, in 2027, the populist right Vox Party is on track to retake power in Spain. Latest polls for the 2027 Spanish general elections indicate that the center-right People's Party are projected to win the most seats, but will not have enough seats to form a majority government. This means that the center-right will have no choice but to form a government with the populist right Vox Party, potentially making its leader Santiago Abascal the deputy prime minister and giving him significant influence in the government. The People's Party leader, Alberto Núñez Feijóo, who is on track to become the next prime minister of Spain, has not rejected the idea of working together with the populist right. His only alternative would be to work together with center-left parties like the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party instead. However, this would almost be impossible due to significant differences in policy and would likely destroy the credibility of the People's Party for working with its rival to lock the populist right out of power. This is a story we've seen so many times before, like in Germany, where the center-right would rather work together with the center-left than with the populist right. This firewall method is used all across Europe to lock the populist right out of power in places like France, where the socialists and Republicans, who are historical rivals, work together to lock the populist national rally out of power. Same thing in Romania, where the national liberals work with the social democrats to block the populist AUR from having any power in government. In the Netherlands, the center-right Christian Democratic Appeal Party worked with the Liberals, Greens, and Socialists to block Geert Wilders' party from power. The only significant country where the center-right works together with the populist right is Italy, where the more moderate center-right Forza Italia party works with further right populist parties instead of the center-left, keeping populists like Giorgia Meloni and Matteo Salvini in power. It is true that the extreme left gets locked out of power too, like in the case of Ireland, where Sinn Féin is always locked out of power, or Denmark, where the center-left Social Democrats have a centrist coalition government with center-right moderates instead of a leftist government with farther-left parties. However, this is far more rare. The center-left are far more open to working with far-left parties than the center-right are to working with parties on the populist right. For example, the center-left Norwegian Labour Party worked together with far-left parties like the Red Party, which is full of communists, but would not work with moderate center-right parties. The firewall method is almost exclusively applied to the populist right, while the extreme left usually gets a free pass. The worst example of the firewall method is in Germany, where the center-right Christian Democratic Union formed a coalition with the center-left Social Democrats, who are also their historical rivals. The reason why this was such a horrible decision is because the German people broadly did not want the Social Democrats to be in government again after their horrible tenure as the previous party in power. More Germans would have preferred the center-right CDU form a coalition government with the populist AfD. Instead, however, they deemed the AfD too extreme and decided to work with their extremely unpopular rivals instead, which is costing them bigly in the polls. Polls in Germany now show that the AfD are on track to becoming the largest party in the country and that their leader Alice Weidel is poised to be Germany's next chancellor. In France, Emmanuel Macron's centrist coalition government is one of the most unpopular in Europe. With no crackdowns on mass migration and a horrible economy, the populist nationalrally party has capitalized on Macron's unpopularity. This is why the nationalrally will likely win the next French presidential and parliamentary elections. Since the leader of nationalrally, Marine Le Pen, is banned from running for president due to sketchy accusations of embezzlement, it's likely that her co-leader Jordan Bardella runs in her place. Jordan Bardella leads all the most recent polls for the presidential elections. Nationalrally also leads all the recent polls in the parliamentary elections. If they win both the presidency and the parliament, then Bardella could potentially appoint Le Pen as prime minister, setting her up to become president after him. Lastly, we have Britain. Both the populist right and the extreme left are gaining significant ground in the United Kingdom. As the center-right conservatives and the center-left Labour Party lose support due to the mass importations of foreigners and a crackdown on freedom of speech, parties like Reform UK and the Greens garner support. The right-wing populist Reform UK is the biggest benefactor of the fall of the Conservatives and Labour, as immigration is the biggest issue now in Great Britain. Polls show Reform UK winning the 2029 elections in a landslide. However, they may need minor support from the Conservatives to actually form a government, since they may be just short of an absolute majority. This is another one of the few times where I see the center-right being more in favor of working with the populist right rather than the center-left, as the Conservatives see where the wind is blowing and realize that they will lose all credibility with their frustrated base if they don't move closer to Reform, who are now the most popular party in the country. Local elections are to take place in May 2026, and Reform are projected to do well in England and Wales. This will be a litmus test for Reform to see how popular they actually are, and if they will actually obtain enough power to form a government in the future. A couple of other elections to look out for are the upcoming Portuguese presidential elections, where the populist right Chega candidate André Ventura is running neck and neck with center-right establishment candidates. Also the Polish parliamentary elections in 2027, where the establishment right-wing Law and Justice Party are projected to win enough seats to form a government as long as they work with the Populist Confederation Liberty and Independence Party. If these trends continue, then the future looks bright for the populist right.